The morning briefing at Harmony Point never changed. 12 ambassadors sat around the crystalline table while holographic displays showed trade routes and diplomatic updates across 17 star systems. Ambassador David Ross reviewed his notes quietly, his plain gray uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and ceremonial armor worn by the other delegates. The Korthik representative, Varn, adjusted his scaled ceremonial armor and glanced dismissively at the human ambassador. In 3 centuries of council membership, his species had never encountered beings quite so unremarkable. Humans possessed no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no telepathic abilities. They had joined the council only 200 years ago. With barely functional spacecraft and primitive energy weapons, High Chancellor Morik of the Valdris Crystalline Collective resonated a low harmonic frequency that translated as mild amusement. The humans had requested membership after their first contact with a Valdris exploration vessel. Their planet Terra orbited an unremarkable yellow star in a backwater region of the galaxy. Their population barely reached 8 billion individuals, living on a single world. The session began with routine matters. Trade agreements between the gas-breathing Nethys and the silicon-based Gorvak. Mining rights in the outer spiral. Diplomatic protests over territorial boundaries. Ross listened carefully but rarely spoke unless directly addressed. When he did contribute, his suggestions were always reasonable and modest. During the lunch recess, Ambassador Keth of the aquatic Merrick species approached Ross near the observation deck. The human stood quietly watching the stars through the massive, transparent aluminum windows. Keth's translation device gurgled softly as he spoke. Your people seem content with such a small role in galactic affairs, Keth observed. Most species seek expansion once they achieve interstellar travel, Ross smiled politely. We prefer to learn before we act. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders we barely understand. Keth found the response typical of human philosophy. They were cautious to the point of timidity. Their single colony world remained their only permanent settlement despite having FTL technology for over a century. They imported most advanced technologies rather than developing their own innovations. Their military consisted of a modest defense fleet that rarely ventured beyond their home system. What Keth and the other council members could not see was the vast network of installations hidden beneath Terra's surface. Dr. Rebecca Stone stood in the primary command center of Installation 7, located 3 kilometers below the Sahara Desert. Banks of quantum computers processed data streams from observation posts throughout the galaxy. Every council session was recorded and analyzed. Every alien technology was studied and improved upon. Status report on Project Mirror, Stone addressed. Her senior staff, Commander Phillips, activated a holographic display showing human military capabilities. All 17 defense installations are fully operational. The orbital platforms remain cloaked and undetectable. Our fleet strength now exceeds the combined naval forces of all council species. Stone nodded approvingly. For 2 centuries, humanity had maintained the most elaborate deception in galactic history. Every piece of alien technology acquired through trade had been reverse-engineered and enhanced. Human scientists had developed innovations that surpassed anything in known space, but these advances remained hidden from the galaxy. The human philosophy was simple but effective. In a universe filled with predatory species and territorial conflicts, it was safer to be underestimated than feared. Let other races view humans as weak and harmless while secretly preparing for whatever threats might emerge. Back on Harmony Point. The afternoon session addressed recent piracy incidents in the Outer Rim. Several member species had lost cargo vessels to unknown attackers. The raids were unusually sophisticated, suggesting organized criminal activity rather than opportunistic theft. Ambassador Varn pounded his clawed fist on the table. The Korthik Empire offers military assistance to patrol the affected regions. Our war fleets have kept peace in this sector for 1,000 years, other delegates murmured agreement. The Korthik military was legendary throughout the galaxy. Their energy shields had never been penetrated in battle. Their plasma cannons could crack the hulls of the largest vessels. If pirates were operating in Council space, Korthic intervention would quickly solve the problem. Ross listened to the discussion without comment. Human intelligence networks had detected the pirate activity 3 months ago. Analysis suggested. The raids were probing attacks designed to test Council defenses. The pattern indicated something far more dangerous than simple criminal activity. That evening, Ross transmitted his daily report to Terra using quantum entanglement, communication technology the Council believed was decades beyond human capability. His message was brief but concerning. Pirate activity confirms earlier intelligence assessments. Unknown force is testing our perimeter defenses. Recommend accelerating Project Shield timelines. On Terra, Stone received the transmission in her underground command center. She had been expecting this development for months. Long-range sensors positioned beyond the galactic rim had detected massive energy signatures moving toward inhabited space. Whatever was coming possessed technology unlike anything in Council records. Stone activated secure channels to all 17 installation commanders. Begin Phase 3 preparations immediately. Maintain stealth protocols but bring all defensive systems to full readiness. Across the planet, hidden installations responded. Weapon systems that could shatter moons powered up silently. Cloaked orbital platforms adjusted their positions. The largest military fleet in galactic history prepared for deployment while remaining completely invisible to outside observation. The next morning brought routine Council business, trade disputes, territorial negotiations, and cultural exchange programs. Ross participated in discussions about expanding educational partnerships between human universities and alien institutions. He proposed modest increases in technology sharing agreements. His manner remained consistently humble and accommodating. During the session break, Ambassador Thera of the insectoid Zenthi Collective approached Ross with unusual urgency. Her compound eyes reflected nervous energy as her translator converted rapid clicks into words. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected anomalous readings from the galactic rim, she reported. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Ross nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps we should increase patrol frequencies in the outer systems. The Council's safety should be our primary concern. Thera found his calm response reassuring. Humans might lack advanced military capabilities, but their cautious nature often provided valuable perspective during crises. She thanked Ross for his suggestion and returned to brief other delegates. Ross maintained his composed expression while internally noting that the Zenthi had finally detected what human sensors had been tracking for months. The unknown threat was accelerating its approach toward Council space. Soon, the galaxy would face its greatest challenge in recorded history. That night, as Harmony Point's artificial lighting dimmed to simulate planetary cycles, Ross stood again at the observation DK. The stars looked peaceful and eternal, but he knew appearances could be deceiving. Humanity had spent 2 centuries perfecting the art of hidden strength. Soon they would discover if their preparations were sufficient for what was coming. The quiet species had learned patience and preparation. When the time came to reveal their true nature, the galaxy would understand that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were those who chose to remain silent until the moment they decided to speak. Emergency klaxons shrieked throughout Harmony Point as the first reports arrived from the Outer Rim colonies. The message was brief and terrifying. Kepler Station had gone silent during routine communications. Search vessels found nothing but empty space where a thriving mining colony once operated. 3 million inhabitants had simply vanished without a trace. High Chancellor Morik resonated urgent harmonics as the Valdris Collective processed the impossible data. An entire orbital facility could not simply disappear. The energy required to destroy such a massive structure would have been detected by monitoring stations throughout the sector. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Kepler Station no longer existed. Ambassador Varn studied tactical displays with growing unease. The Korthic Empire had faced countless threats during their millennium of galactic dominance, but nothing like this. Military doctrine required an identifiable enemy before deploying appropriate countermeasures. How could they fight something that left no survivors and no evidence? David Ross sat quietly at the emergency council session while other delegates debated impossible scenarios. His expression remained calm and attentive, but his mind processed information far beyond what the official reports contained. Human deep space monitoring stations had recorded the actual attack on Kepler Station. The enemy was unlike anything in galactic databases. Dr. Rebecca Stone reviewed the classified footage in her underground command center 3 kilometers beneath Terra's surface. The attacking force consisted of biomechanical vessels that seemed to grow rather than move through space. They had surrounded Kepler Station like a living organism consuming prey. Within 6 hours, the entire facility had been absorbed into the attacker's hull structure. "Analysis confirms our worst projections," reported Commander Phillips. "The enemy vessels adapt to defensive measures in real time. Kepler Station's shield generators were neutralized within minutes. Their weapon systems became ineffective after initial contact." Stone studied the tactical data with professional detachment. The enemy had demonstrated technology that surpassed anything in Council space. Their biomechanical ships could apparently learn from each defensive measure and develop countermeasures instantly. Conventional military doctrine would be useless against such adaptive capabilities. Back on Harmony Point, the emergency session continued as more reports arrived. 3 additional colonies had fallen in the past 24 hours. The pattern was consistent, complete disappearance with no survivors or debris. Whatever was attacking possessed overwhelming technological superiority. Ambassador Keth of the aquatic Merrick species gurgled urgently through his translation device. "Our analysis suggests coordinated attacks by an unknown force. The timing indicates strategic planning rather than random destruction." Varn's clawed hands gripped the table edge. "The Korthic Empire will deploy Battle Group 7 to investigate these incidents. Our war fleets have never encountered an enemy they could not defeat." Ross listened to the discussion while maintaining his characteristic diplomatic silence. Human intelligence had identified the threat months ago and designated it as the Devourers based on their consumption patterns. The approaching force consisted of thousands of biomechanical vessels commanded by a hive-mind intelligence that viewed organic life as resources to be harvested. The first direct contact occurred 72 hours later when a Korthic patrol fleet encountered the enemy near the Rigel sector. Admiral Korax commanded 12 heavy cruisers equipped with the most advanced military technology in Council space. His plasma cannons could penetrate any known shielding system. His energy barriers had deflected attacks from entire pirate fleets. The battle lasted 18 minutes. Stone watched the engagement through human surveillance drones positioned throughout the sector. The Devourer vessels moved with organic fluidity while their biomechanical hulls adapted to each weapon impact. Korthic plasma cannons initially caused significant damage, but the enemy ships quickly developed resistance to the energy frequencies. Within minutes, the same weapons became completely ineffective. The Korthic shields, legendary for their impenetrable barriers, were systematically analyzed and breached. The Devourer vessels seemed to taste the energy patterns before finding weaknesses that conventional sensors could never detect. One by one, Admiral Korax's cruisers were disabled and consumed by the biomechanical swarm. Emergency transmissions from the battle zone reached Harmony Point as the massacre concluded. The proud Korthic fleet had been completely destroyed. Worse, analysis of the brief engagement showed the enemy had deliberately prolonged the battle to study Korthic technology. They were learning from every encounter. The council chambers erupted in barely controlled panic as delegates grasped the implications. If the mighty Korthic Empire could not resist these attackers, what hope did other species possess? The enemy demonstrated the ability to adapt to any defensive measure within hours of first contact. Ambassador Thyra's compound eyes reflected terror as she processed the tactical reports. The Zenthi Collective proposes immediate evacuation of all Outer Rim populations. Our analysis indicates this enemy cannot be defeated through conventional warfare. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Several delegates began discussing surrender negotiations and terms for peaceful coexistence. The alternative appeared to be complete extinction for all council species. Ross finally spoke during the chaos, his voice calm and measured. Perhaps we should consider all available options before abandoning entire star systems. The situation may not be as hopeless as it appears. Varn turned toward the human ambassador with barely concealed desperation. What options remain? Our finest military forces were destroyed without inflicting significant damage on the enemy. These creatures adapt too quickly for any traditional military response. Traditional responses may indeed prove inadequate, Ross replied carefully. However, adaptation requires time and analysis. Perhaps the key lies in strategies the enemy has not yet encountered. The other delegates found little comfort in Ross's diplomatic language. Humans possess the weakest military forces in council space. Their single defense fleet rarely ventured beyond their home system. What could they possibly contribute to a crisis that had defeated the galaxy's greatest warriors? Stone monitored the council session from her command center while reviewing updated intelligence reports. The Devourer main fleet was approaching, fast through hyperspace corridors that would bring them to inhabited systems within weeks. Advanced scouts were already probing the defenses of major population centers. The time for deception was ending. Humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact scenario while maintaining their facade of harmless mediocrity. Their hidden installations, cloaked weapons platforms, and secret fleets represented the most advanced military technology in galactic history. The question was whether their preparations would prove sufficient against an enemy that could adapt to any conventional attack. Signal all installations to maintain stealth protocols until further orders, Stone commanded. The enemy must not detect our true capabilities until we are ready to deploy them. On Harmony Point, the emergency session continued through the night as reports arrived of additional colony disappearances. The Devourers were accelerating their advance toward the galaxy's core systems. Panic spread through civilian populations as news of the Korthek defeat reached the public networks. Ross participated in increasingly desperate planning sessions, while secretly coordinating with Terra's military command. The other ambassadors had no idea that every word spoken in the council chambers was being analyzed by human strategic computers. Every piece of information about the enemy was being processed and integrated into battle plans that existed only in the deepest classified files. The masquerade would continue for a few more days, while the galaxy prepared for its darkest hour. Soon, the quiet species would be forced to reveal what they had hidden beneath their peaceful exterior. The universe was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were those who chose to remain silent until the moment they decided to act. The Devourer advanced fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Terra's solar system, expecting to find another defenseless world ripe for consumption. Their biomechanical vessels had absorbed 17 colonies without encountering meaningful resistance. The hive mind directing their actions anticipated harvesting 8 billion human lives within hours of arrival. Instead, they encountered something that defied every calculation in their collective consciousness. The space around Terra erupted with defensive installations that materialized from apparent nothingness. Massive weapons platforms decloaked simultaneously, while orbital defense stations revealed themselves from positions that had appeared empty moments before. Admiral Tom Hayes stood in the command center of the flagship Defiance, watching tactical displays that showed the enemy's shock and confusion. For 2 centuries, humanity had prepared for this exact moment. Every piece of alien technology acquired through diplomatic channels had been studied, improved, and weaponized. The modest defense fleet other species observed was merely a fraction of humanity's true military capability. All platforms report ready status, announced Commander Wells from the tactical station. Enemy fleet strength assessed at 47. Biomechanical vessels, mass ranging from cruiser to dreadnought classification. Hayes nodded grimly. Human intelligence had predicted this force composition based on previous attacks. The Devourers typically sent advanced fleets to test planetary defenses before committing their main battle groups. They had no way of knowing The Terra's defenses exceeded anything they had previously encountered. The first Devourer vessel moved toward the inner system while its biomechanical hull began adapting to the energy signatures detected from human installations. The hive mind expected to analyze and counter any defensive measures within the standard time frame of 6 to 8 hours. Their adaptive technology had never failed to overcome enemy resistance. Hayes activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All units initiate Protocol 7, fire when ready. The response was immediate and devastating. Railguns mounted on cloaked asteroids fired tungsten projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy release was equivalent to nuclear warheads, but the Devourers had no previous experience with purely kinetic weapons. Their biomechanical hulls, designed to adapt to energy-based attacks, proved vulnerable to simple physics. The lead Devourer vessel shuddered under multiple impacts before its adaptive systems could respond. By the time the hive mind began developing countermeasures, a second wave of attacks had already launched. Human energy weapons, based on principles unknown to galactic science, cut through biomechanical armor like heated blades through organic tissue. Dr. Rebecca Stone monitored the engagement from Installation 7 while coordinating with defense platforms throughout the solar system. The Devourer's greatest advantage had always been their ability to adapt faster than enemies could adjust tactics. Humanity had solved this problem through overwhelming technological superiority rather than conventional military doctrine. Enemy vessels attempting adaptive responses to kinetic bombardment, reported the tactical officer. Estimated completion. Time for effective countermeasures, 14 minutes. Stone smiled coldly. Rotate to plasma bombardment in 10 minutes. Follow with gravitational pulse weapons after they adapt to plasma. Keep them guessing. The battle unfolded with brutal efficiency as human forces demonstrated tactical flexibility the Devourers had never encountered. Each time the biomechanical vessels began adapting to one weapon system, the attacks shifted to completely different technologies. The hive mind found itself constantly falling behind the pace of human innovation. On Harmony Point, emergency sensors detected the massive energy releases from Terra's solar system. The other Council species watched in stunned silence as sensor readings indicated a major space battle in progress. Ambassador David Ross had not attended the morning emergency session. Claiming urgent communications with his home government, High Chancellor Morik resonated confused harmonics as the Valdris collective processed impossible data. The energy signatures from human space exceeded anything in their historical databases. How could a species with primitive military technology generate such massive power outputs? Ambassador Varn studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. These energy levels suggest weapons technology decades in advance of our current capabilities. How is this possible? Back in Terra's system, the one-sided battle continued as human forces systematically dismantled the Devourer advance fleet. The biomechanical vessels that had consumed entire colonies found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by an enemy they had dismissed as harmless prey. The final Devourer vessel attempted to retreat toward hyperspace, but human pursuit craft intercepted it before escape was possible. These vessels moved with impossible speed and agility, their design incorporating technologies that surpassed anything the hive mind had previously observed. Captain Lisa Park commanded the destroyer Swift from her position in the pilot's neural interface. The advanced control systems allowed her to react to threats faster than biological reflexes could process. Her ship danced through space while delivering precise strikes that penetrated the enemy's adaptive defenses before countermeasures could develop. Target neutralized, Park reported as the last Devourer vessel broke apart under sustained fire. System secured. No enemy survivors detected. The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in their expansion across the galaxy, the Devourers had encountered total defeat. Their advanced fleet had been completely destroyed without inflicting a single casualty on the defending forces. Hayes activated communication channels to Harmony Point, knowing that the other Council species would be monitoring all frequencies for information about the battle. His message was brief and delivered in the same calm tone that characterized all human diplomatic communications. Terra Defense Command to Harmony Point. We have engaged and neutralized an enemy force in our home system. Threat assessment indicates this was an advanced reconnaissance unit. Analysis suggests the main enemy fleet will arrive within 48 hours. The transmission sent shock waves through the emergency council session. The species that had been dismissed as militarily insignificant had just accomplished what the mighty Korthic Empire had failed to achieve. They had stopped the Devourers cold. Ambassador Ross appeared at the council chambers 30 minutes later, his demeanor subtly different from the humble diplomat who had served for decades. The change was difficult to define but unmistakable. He carried himself with quiet confidence that had not been present before. The immediate threat to this system has been eliminated, Ross reported to the stunned assembly. However, our intelligence indicates the primary Devourer force consists of several thousand vessels. They will arrive in approximately 2 standard days. Varn leaned forward with desperate hope. Your technology... How is such advanced capability possible? We had no indication of human military development. Ross met the Korthic ambassador's gaze steadily. We have been preparing for threats like this since joining the council. Our philosophy has always been to hope for peace while preparing for war. The revelation sent tremors through the assembled delegates. The species they had patronized and dismissed had been secretly developing military technology that surpassed their collective capabilities. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single afternoon, Thyra's compound eyes reflected. New respect and wariness. What do you propose for the main enemy force? Our combined fleets cannot match their adaptive capabilities. Ross considered the question while accessing information that existed only in the deepest classified files. Humanity's true military strength remained largely hidden even after this demonstration. The defense of Terra had utilized less than 10% of their actual capabilities. We will handle the situation, Ross replied simply. However, we recommend that all Council fleets maintain defensive positions around your home systems. This enemy is too dangerous for conventional military engagement. The statement carried implications that chilled the other ambassadors. The humans were essentially declaring their intention to face the main Devourer fleet alone. Either they possessed military capabilities beyond imagination, or they were preparing for a suicidal last stand. Stone reviewed the battle analysis while preparing for the next phase of operations. The advanced fleet had provided valuable intelligence about Devourer capabilities and weaknesses. The main engagement would require different tactics and the deployment of weapon systems that had never been tested in actual combat. The masquerade was over. After 2 centuries of careful deception, humanity had revealed itself as the dominant military power in known space. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when the quiet species finally decided to speak. Space around Terra transformed overnight as humanity mobilized for total war. Hidden shipyards throughout the solar system activated simultaneously, releasing vessels that had been constructed in absolute secrecy. Asteroid bases opened like flowers to reveal fleet anchorages. Gas giant mining platforms shed their industrial facades to expose military installations of staggering size. Captain Lisa Park reviewed her mission briefing aboard the stealth destroyer Phantom while the ship prepared for deep space insertion. The vessel represented technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Its hull could bend light around itself to achieve perfect invisibility. Its engines manipulated spacetime to achieve faster-than-light travel without entering hyperspace. Most importantly, its weapons could strike targets from distances measured in light years. The main Devourer fleet had emerged from hyperspace beyond the galactic rim, exactly where human intelligence predicted they would appear. 3,000 biomechanical vessels arranged themselves in consumption formations, while their hive mind processed the unexpected defeat of their advance force. They had never encountered resistance that could completely destroy a reconnaissance fleet without sustaining casualties. Dr. Rebecca Stone coordinated the operation from Installation 7, while monitoring communication intercepts from across the galaxy. The other council species were evacuating civilian populations and preparing defensive positions around their homeworlds. None of them believed conventional military forces could resist the approaching swarm. Phase 1 objectives confirmed, reported Admiral Hayes from the Defiance. Deep strike teams are in position. Enemy fleet composition matches intelligence projections. Stone studied tactical displays that showed the true scale of human military deployment. 200 years of secret preparation had produced the largest space fleet in galactic history. More importantly, every vessel incorporated technologies that the Devourers had never encountered, and could not quickly adapt to counter, Park guided. The Phantom threw hyperspace toward coordinates that existed only in classified navigation databases. Her target was not the approaching fleet, but the Devourer homeworld itself. Human intelligence had identified the source of their biomechanical technology. Massive breeding complexes located beyond the galaxy's edge where the hive mind gestated new vessels. And combat forms. The stealth destroyer dropped back into normal space within the enemy's home system. Park activated passive sensors while the ship's artificial intelligence analyzed the overwhelming amount of data. The Devourer homeworld was unlike anything in human databases. The entire planet had been converted into a living factory that produced weapons of war. Beginning reconnaissance sweep, Park transmitted through quantum entanglement communication that could not be intercepted or detected. Target environment confirms intelligence projections. Initiating strike protocol. Billions of kilometers away, the main Devourer fleet began accelerating toward inhabited space while their hive mind attempted to understand the anomalous resistance they had encountered. Their adaptive technology should have overcome any defensive system within hours of initial contact. The complete destruction of their advance force suggested enemies with capabilities beyond their experience. The first human deep strike attack materialized without warning as the Phantom launched gravitational torpedoes at the Devourer breeding complexes. The weapons created localized distortions in spacetime that tore apart biomechanical structures on the molecular level. Entire factory installations collapsed into singularities before the hive mind could comprehend what was happening. Stone monitored the assault while coordinating similar strikes throughout Devourer space. Human vessels had appeared simultaneously at 17 different systems, targeting supply lines and support infrastructure that the enemy believed were safely beyond any possible attack range. The hive mind found itself fighting a war on multiple fronts against enemies who seemed to ignore the fundamental limitations of interstellar warfare back in Council space. The emergency session continued as delegates received reports of impossible energy signatures from the galactic rim. Long-range sensors detected massive explosions and weapon discharges at distances that should have been beyond any fleet's operational range. Ambassador Ross attended the session with his characteristic calm demeanor, but the other delegates now viewed him with mixture of respect and growing unease. The human representative listened to their panicked discussions while accessing information they could not imagine existed. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting combat operations throughout the enemy's territory, reported Ambassador Keth through his translation device. How is such coordinated action possible across such vast distances? Ross considered his response carefully. Humanity's true capabilities remained largely classified even after their demonstration at Terra, the technology required for simultaneous deep strike operations against multiple star systems would fundamentally alter the balance of power throughout known space. We have developed certain tactical advantages during our defensive preparations, Ross replied diplomatically. The situation is being addressed through appropriate military measures. High Chancellor Morick resonated frustrated harmonics as the Valdris Collective struggled to process the implications. Your species has clearly possessed advanced military technology for an extended period. Why was the Council not informed of these capabilities? The question struck at the heart of humanity's two-century deception. Ross met the crystalline ambassador's optical sensors without flinching. The galaxy is a dangerous place. We believed it was prudent to maintain defensive capabilities that exceeded our apparent strength. Meanwhile, the systematic destruction of Devourer infrastructure continued as human forces demonstrated tactical superiority that bordered on the supernatural. Their vessels appeared and disappeared at will while delivering strikes that the hive mind could not counter or even understand. Biomechanical ships that had consumed entire civilizations found themselves hunted through deep space by enemies, who seemed to anticipate their every move. Captain Park completed her reconnaissance of the Devourer homeworld while coordinating with strike teams throughout the enemy's territory. The biomechanical complexes were more vulnerable than human intelligence had projected. Their adaptive technology was designed to counter energy-based attacks, not the exotic physics weapons that humanity had developed. Primary objectives achieved, Park reported as she watched another breeding facility collapse into a quantum singularity. Enemy production capacity reduced by 60%. Recommend transition to Phase 2 operations. Stone authorized the next stage of the offensive while reviewing casualty reports that showed 0 human losses despite operations spanning dozens of star systems. The Devourers were learning that their greatest advantage, adaptive technology, was useless against enemies who attacked with weapons based on principles outside their experience. The hive mind began withdrawing forces from the advance toward inhabited space as reports reached them of catastrophic losses in their home territory. Their biomechanical vessels, which had never retreated from any engagement, found themselves fleeing from human forces that appeared capable of striking anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Admiral Hayes coordinated the pursuit from the Defiance, while human fleets emerged from hyperspace to intercept retreating Devourer formations. The enemy ships that had terrorized the galaxy for months now found themselves the targets of a hunting campaign that spanned light years. The transformation was complete. The species that had been dismissed as harmless and primitive had revealed themselves as the most advanced military power in known space. Their careful deception had allowed them to develop technologies that surpassed anything in galactic databases while maintaining the element of surprise until the moment they chose to act. On Harmony Point, the Emergency Council session received its final update from the combat zone. Ambassador Ross stood before the assembled delegates with news that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of humanity's true nature. The immediate threat has been neutralized, Ross reported with characteristic understatement. Enemy forces are in full retreat. We estimate complete elimination of their military capability within 72 hours. The silence that followed was profound. The Devourers, who had consumed civilizations and terrified the galaxy's greatest military powers, were being systematically hunted to extinction by the species everyone had believed was weakest of all. The age of human dominance had begun not through conquest, but through the simple revelation of what they had been hiding all along. 6 months after the last Devourer vessel was destroyed in the depths of intergalactic space, the galaxy struggled to understand its new reality. Admiral Tom Hayes stood before the reconstructed Galactic Council in chambers that now orbited Terra. Instead of the neutral station at Harmony Point, the symbolic change represented more than mere convenience. Power had shifted to humanity, and the physical relocation made that fact impossible to ignore. The assembled delegates looked far different than they had during the crisis. Where once 12 species met as equals, now 11 species sought accommodation. With the 12th, the comfortable arrogance of galactic civilization had been shattered by the revelation that their weakest member possessed military capabilities that dwarfed their combined forces. Hayes reviewed the final combat reports with professional detachment. The Devourer threat had been completely eliminated through systematic extermination rather than simple military defeat. Human forces had tracked down every biomechanical vessel, destroyed every breeding complex, and permanently severed the quantum entanglement networks that connected their hive mind. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for months no longer existed in any form. Total enemy casualties: confirmed destruction of 3,247 vessels across 41 star systems. Hayes reported to the silent assembly. Human casualties: 0 fatalities, minimal equipment damage. The threat has been permanently eliminated. The statistics were staggering in their implications. Humanity had achieved complete victory against an enemy that had effortlessly defeated every other military force in known space. More disturbing was the efficiency of their success. The Devourers had been systematically hunted and destroyed with an effectiveness that suggested overwhelming technological superiority. Ambassador Varn of the Korthek Empire sat in stunned silence as he processed the magnitude of human military capability. His species had prided themselves on 1,000 years of military dominance, but their greatest battle fleets would have been irrelevant against the forces humanity had revealed. The proud warrior culture that defined Korthek society suddenly seemed primitive by comparison. High Chancellor Morek resonated subdued harmonics as the Valdris collective attempted to understand how they had so completely misjudged human capabilities. Their crystalline matrices had analyzed human technology for 2 centuries without detecting any indication of the advanced systems that had just reshaped galactic warfare. The deception had been perfect in its execution. Hayes continued his briefing while studying the reactions of the assembled delegates. Fear was the dominant emotion, followed closely by desperate calculation as each species attempted to determine their position in the new galactic hierarchy. The comfortable assumptions that had governed interstellar relations for millennia had been permanently shattered. However, our analysis of galactic defense capabilities has revealed serious structural weaknesses, Hayes added. The current military organization of Council Space proved inadequate against external threats. Reforms are necessary to prevent future incidents. The word reforms sent chills through the assembly. Each delegate understood that humanity was not making suggestions but stating requirements. The species that had hidden their strength for 2 centuries was now prepared to reshape galactic civilization according to their own strategic interests. Dr. Rebecca Stone monitored the council session from her command center while coordinating the largest military reorganization in galactic history. Human advisors were being assigned to every major fleet command. Human monitoring stations were being established in every inhabited system. The technology that had defeated the Devourers was being selectively shared with species that demonstrated proper cooperation. Ambassador Ross, now bearing the title of Galactic Coordinator, stood to address the assembly. His transformation from humble diplomat to administrative authority symbolized humanity's broader emergence from deliberate obscurity. The quiet species had chosen to step into the light, and their presence dominated everything around them. The integration process will begin immediately, Ross announced. Joint defense initiatives will be established under human oversight. Technology sharing protocols will be implemented according to security classifications. Military command structures will be reorganized to ensure effective coordination during future emergencies. The clinical language could not disguise the reality of what was being proposed. Humanity was assuming direct control over galactic military forces while maintaining technological superiority through selective information sharing. The other species would be allowed to participate in their own defense, but only under human supervision and according to human priorities. Captain Lisa Park completed her final patrol sweep of the galactic rim while reflecting on the changes that had transformed interstellar society. The Phantom and her sister ships now maintained constant surveillance of the galaxy's borders. Nothing would ever again approach inhabited space without human knowledge and permission. The age of external threats had ended through the simple application of overwhelming force. The resistance was predictable but ultimately futile. Several species attempted to maintain their independence through military buildup and defensive alliances. The Zenthi Collective declared their intention to develop counter-technologies that could match human capabilities. The Aquatic Merrick attempted to withdraw from council participation entirely, believing their oceanic homeworld would provide natural protection from human interference. Stone addressed these challenges with the same methodical efficiency that had characterized the Devourer extermination. Species that cooperated received access to advanced defensive technologies and economic benefits. Those that resisted discovered that their industrial capacity, communication networks, and transportation systems depended on technologies that humanity could disable remotely. The Zenthi found their research facilities mysteriously failing as quantum computers crashed and manufacturing systems produced defective components. The Merrick discovered that their isolation was an illusion when human vessels appeared in their deepest ocean trenches, demonstrating capabilities that made their planetary defenses irrelevant. Within 3 months, every species had accepted the new arrangement. The alternative was technological and economic collapse followed by absorption into the expanding sphere of human influence. Cooperation offered dignity and limited autonomy. Resistance offered only inevitable submission under less favorable terms. Hayes established the new military command structure with ruthless efficiency. Human officers assumed control of all strategic planning while alien personnel were assigned to tactical support roles. The technology gap ensured that no species could effectively challenge human authority, but their participation provided legitimacy to the reorganization. The transformation extended beyond military affairs as human influence reshaped every aspect of galactic civilization. Trade agreements were renegotiated to favor human economic interests. Research partnerships were established that provided humanity with access to alien scientific databases while sharing only selected human innovations in return. Cultural exchange programs expanded dramatically, but the flow was predominantly unidirectional. Human art, philosophy, and social systems spread throughout alien societies while their own traditions were gradually marginalized. The process was subtle but relentless, designed to create psychological dependency alongside technological subordination. Ross coordinated these changes from his new headquarters in the orbital complex surrounding Terra. The planet that had once hidden its capabilities now displayed them openly. Massive shipyards constructed vessels that dwarfed anything in alien fleets. Research stations developed technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. The visible symbols of human power served as constant reminders of the new galactic order. The final council session under the old system was held exactly 1 year after the Devourer crisis began. Ambassador Thera spoke for many when she addressed Ross with carefully controlled resentment. Your species deliberately deceived us for 2 centuries while secretly developing capabilities that rendered our own military forces obsolete. How can you expect trust after such systematic deception? Ross considered the question while reviewing the broader strategic situation. Trust was irrelevant when compliance could be ensured through technological dominance. The galaxy had learned to function under human oversight, whether individual species approved or not. Trust must be earned through demonstrated reliability, Ross replied calmly. We protected this galaxy from complete destruction when no other force could resist the threat. Our continued leadership ensures that similar dangers will never again endanger civilized worlds. The logic was unassailable even if the implications were disturbing. Humanity had indeed saved the galaxy, but their methods had fundamentally altered the nature of interstellar civilization. The age of independent species cooperating as equals had ended. The age of human hegemony had begun. Stone reviewed the final strategic assessments from her command center while planning the next phase of expansion. Human exploration fleets were already probing neighboring galaxies for potential threats and resources. The defensive preparations that had begun as protection against unknown dangers had evolved into the foundation for unlimited expansion. The transformation was complete. The species that had chosen to remain hidden until the moment they decided to reveal themselves now stood as the undisputed masters of known space. Their patient deception had allowed them to develop capabilities that exceeded anything in galactic history while maintaining the element of surprise until the moment they chose to act. The galaxy was at peace, but it was a peace maintained through the constant presence of overwhelming force. Humanity had learned that the most effective strategy was to be underestimated until the moment came to demonstrate one's true strength. Now that the demonstration was complete, there could be no doubt about who controlled the future of galactic civilization. Ross stood at the observation deck of his orbital headquarters, watching the stars with the satisfaction of someone who had witnessed the successful conclusion of a plan 2 centuries in the making. The quiet species had finally spoken, and their words had reshaped the universe itself. The age of human dominance had begun through the simple revelation of what they had been preparing for all along.